I don't think Rick is playing with his guitar on that, but that's good guitar work for the L.A. Times. This is Bill Moran, 311 on a Sunday afternoon. And we're going to be with you right up until 4 o'clock, and Rick Nelson is here. I do want to remind you, we gave out a lot of phone numbers in the last couple of hours, and including the one to Joanne DeRusso from the Permit Office downtown L.A. If you missed any of the numbers, if you got any questions about getting your kids in commercials, motion pictures, and television, drop me a line. Bill Moran here in care of KABC Talk Radio, and we'll definitely get to all the letters, and we'll get them to the appropriate people who are with us during the first 2 hours of the show. And obviously, by your response, again, it's pretty obvious to me that we certainly threw out a lot of very important information, and we'll do this again very, very soon. Rick Nelson, as you sit here, apparently a lot of people want to get their kids in commercials, motion pictures, and television.
It seems so, you know. It does. It's, you know, as you probably know, I was kind of raised in television, and before that, radio.
You were on Ozzie and Harriet for how long?
Well, 14 years.
14 years. Radio before that?
Yeah, radio before that. Like, I guess 3 years before that. And the first year it was live, and I was 7 years old on that.
So you've been in entertainment virtually all your life.
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much.
Did it? Let's talk about the issue here. Did it help you? Now, in other words, the subject of nepotism came up during the first 2 hours. Did it help you being the son of Ozzie and Harriet?
Oh, I think so. I think there were many more advantages to being the son of people like that, and I know there certainly was to me, and is to me. And you know, I know on the television show when I went into singing, which was quite a bit later, it helped very much, you know, because of the exposure.
Mm-hmm. What are the disadvantages, if any, of being of having such a prominent family around you?
I really can't think of any, to be honest with you, really. You know, maybe the only disadvantage possibly could be that that people have sort of a preconceived idea of what you're supposed to be, you know, from the television show. And
how honest was that series? Was that the way Ozzie and Harriet and the family behaved at home?
Yeah, really. It was really just an extension of our home life. Mm-hmm. And those values and everything that you saw on the television show were really my father's. And a lot of the stories were actually taken from things that we were involved in.
You were a funny little kid.
Well, yeah, I got all the good lines, you know.
You did get the good lines, that's for sure. Did your dad and your mom write any of the lines?
Oh yeah, my father wrote all the shows, you know, and he did have a staff of writers, and but he edited it, and you know, it was really his show. He produced it, you know, directed it, and acted in it. And I've always admired the way he could, you know, really keep the family together and be a father and a director. You know, could have been a very difficult situation. But.
When you look at, of course, the show is still in reruns today. When you look at comedy today, comedy with Ozzie and Harriet was happy times, fun. Didn't get into a lot of serious subjects, I don't believe, as I recall watching them. Of course, I was younger then, too. What about comedy now? Are we going too far the other way with the Norman Lear brand of comedy?
I don't think so. I think it's really a reflection of the times, you know, and our show was done in the 50s, and it was a show about the 50s. And, you know, I used to go to drive-ins and malt shops and everything.
Why do we want to go back to the 50s? It seems that everything points to that direction. Were those really the fun times?
Well, they were fun for me. You know, I know I really enjoyed myself, and I don't know why people would want to go back. I don't think it's, maybe it's a thing where everything seems to go in cycles, you know, and kind of return to certain things and then go back around.
Yeah.
Know? I don't know.
Of course, everybody looks at the 50s and they say, well, those were the days without drugs, or those were the days without the violence that we have today, but I'm really wondering whether they were.
Yeah, I think that there was probably the same amount of violence, I'm sure, you know, because, you know, it was the big thing to get into, you know, have clubs and you know, that whole thing in high school, you know.
Now, you go back to the 1950s, there was a young man named Elvis Presley who came on the scene. Sam Phillips signing him to Sun Records, and of course I had Sam on the show not too long ago, and we discussed the Presley phenomenon then. And the manager who, I'm telling you, Colonel Parker, what he did for Elvis Presley has got to be probably the most dramatic story in terms of one manager handling young talent. And, of course, Elvis Presley has gone on to become the biggest-selling recording star in history, selling upwards of 500 million records. Now, there's talk that Rick Nelson and Colonel Parker may be getting together, and the year is 1978. Is there any truth to that conversation?
Well, I'll tell you, we've been friends a long time, and I was around in the 50s during that time, and I really got the opportunity to meet both of the Colonel and Elvis in the early days, back in the 50s, and ever since we have been friends, the Colonel and myself, and he's always been there in like an advisory role and as a friend, really. So I feel very fortunate because I have always admired his ability and his knowledge of show business, really.
Well, will he be handling your career now?
Well, I can't say that that he's really handling it. He's involved to the point where he's always there as an advisor, really.
Okay, now, Rick Nelson has sold a lot of records. You'd be surprised, audience, when you take a look at the biggest sellers of all time. Rick Nelson is one of the biggest sellers of all time. He's had several million-selling singles and huge albums. Of course, many of them on Imperial Records, I guess, back in the...
Yeah, that's when, Fats Domino was on Imperial at those times, too, and it was really a one-man operation during those times.
That's right. It certainly was. Between you and Fats Domino, he'd have a #1 record, he'd go down, and then you'd grab it. And then you throw in Presley and Pat Boone, and that pretty much takes care of it.
Well, I'll tell you, I feel really fortunate in being around at that time because it was like 56 when I started, And Fats Domino had just had a record, I'm Walking, that I liked very much.
Yeah.
And it had 3 chords in it, so I could play it on a guitar,
Yeah.
And so I went down and I recorded it, and really much to everybody's surprise, and mine too. I mean, I just thought I was going to make one record, and that would be enough for me, But all of a sudden I started hearing it on the radio, and it was a really great experience for me.
Now, you're red hot in the late 50s, early 60s, and then the Beatles came along, and the Beatles obviously hurt a lot of American recording artists back in 63, 64.
Well, I guess, as far as getting exposure on the radio, but I think they turned a lot of heads with the actual recording techniques, and I think they contributed an awful lot, rather than hurting people. But I know what you're saying as far as having American artists being played, everything, it was like everything was English at that time.
No question about it. Now we carry Rick through the late 60s, and again, I'm calling you Rick Nelson. When did you lose the term Ricky?
I don't know. I really don't know. I'll answer to just about anything.
Oh, okay. Okay, Joe. Let her go.
It really hasn't. It's never been a big issue with me. And everybody will go, Ricky, and then go, oh, sorry,
yeah.
Rick. And my real name is Eric.
Mm-hmm.
And any of those 3 are fine.
Now we carry you through the 60s and into the early 70s, and you had Garden Party, which was quite a story, and that really brought you back into the forefront again of making hit recordings.
Well, yeah, I did a rock and roll revival, in Madison Square Garden, and really it was kind of instant non-acceptance, I guess you'd call it. Just they didn't. I don't, for whatever reason, really, I didn't think that we were doing that bad of a show at the time, but I did things like I had right before then I had "She Belongs to Me," which is a Dylan song, and to them it wasn't a nostalgic kind of thing.
They wanted you back the way you were.
I guess so, but it was the strange part. It was we really I had to go back and I relearned all the older songs and did them in chronological order and on the show, and it was kind of like they just wouldn't hear it, and maybe. And all I could think of was, well, maybe, my hair was a little longer or something like that. And I had never been to a rock and roll revival. And those are kind of like games that they play, And you're supposed to dress like the 50s and come out like that. And we weren't. So it was sort of ironic because right from there we went over to England where they had never seen the show or had never seen me before.
Probably loved you.
And it went real well at Royal Albert Hall there. Right there.
On the other hand, when you have a clean-cut image, which you have, do you think that hurts you in selling records today?
I don't think so. I think today there's probably a much more broad acceptance of music and people. I don't think you really have to fit into one specific category to sell records like you did maybe in the 50s.
Now, I'm looking at, now you're going to be at the Roxy, and of course you're going to be doing some material. Now, are you writing a lot of the songs you're doing now?
Yeah, I am. And on the last album, I wrote a couple of songs, and the other songs it's all self-contained. What we do, I have my own group. And they write a lot of songs, and they contribute a lot musically.
The album's intakes on Epic Records, I noticed there were two. Were those two songs, which were basically, certainly had a lot to say, are they a reflection of your own time and life today? Would you say those two songs that you wrote?
I would hope so, yeah, they are.
They're basically love songs and hurt and so on and so forth.
Yeah, they're songs just my thoughts, you know. Mm-hmm. And they're not songs where I sat down and I said I should write a song about this subject. You know, and do that. I've never been able to do that. I'm not that, business-like, I guess.
When you open at the Roxy, now when will you be at the Roxy?
We're going to be there this weekend, starting Thursday, which is the 2nd, through the 4th.
Good, and we'll be catching roughly an hour's show, and your band, let's see, how many members are in your band now?
There are 4.
4.
Uh-huh.
And will you be doing some of the old songs, too?
Yeah, we do. We do some of the old songs, and then do some new things.
Super. Okay, to talk to Rick Nelson in Los Angeles, 870-7263. Again, some of you parents out there who were questioning about commercials, movies, and television, Rick Nelson experienced everything we talked about in the first couple of hours. You want to get into that area, we can get into it. San Fernando Valley, Simi Valley, Santa Monica West, L.A., 981-7900. You remember the 50s. We're talking here to a man who was one of the most dominant forces in popular music in the 50s, selling a lot of records alongside of Elvis Presley and Pat Boone and Fats Domino and Carl Perkins and others who were so big in the 50s. Orange County, San Diego, and Riverside, 638-5151. If you want to get Rick Nelson's attitude about today, about the rock culture and the rock music, 1978, and his role in it. Burbank, Glendale, and Pasadena, we're at 244-0790. If you live in the San Gabriel Valley, we're at 579-5986. The South Bay area, 644-0790. Compton, Lakewood, Paramount, and Long Beach, 639-2036. Rick Nelson, 78. You're popular. If we judge by what this board looks like, we'd better go to the lines. KABC, you're on with Bill Moran and Rick Nelson.
Yeah, hi, Rick. This is Norm from L.A. How are you?
Yeah, Norm, good.
I certainly was a big fan of yours back in the 50s and the 60s, and I certainly kind of understood the message, if you want to call it that, a message that you had with Garden Party.
Uh-huh.
For somebody who grew up in the 50s and watched your television shows and kind of understands that, I was curious to know what kind of attitude one should possess when they go to one of your concerts now. Are they supposed to? How are they supposed to think, and what are they supposed to expect?
Gee, I don't know. Hopefully, what I try to do is just to be totally myself, and hope that the people will come there and be open to what they see, and like I said, we do some of the older songs because I'm really, a lot of people are kind of embarrassed maybe to do old songs, but I've always had the luxury of being able to record whatever I want, and I'm really not embarrassed by them. So and I do enjoy performing them.
Which of the older songs do you tend to favor in your concerts more than other ones?
We usually do like Lonesome Town and Traveling Man and Hello Mary Lou.
And one other thing, were you kind of, as you look back on some of those older TV shows, were you kind of happy with the smart aleck attitude that you had to play in the earlier series as opposed to a more serious role that you took on as the show moved into the 60s?
Yeah, I really enjoyed myself, and I didn't mean to be smart alecky, but like I say, I got all the good lines,
Yeah.
So it was kind of easy to do.
You were also the little guy. You were always a little guy in that series.
Yeah, I always had I had the highest voice there in Captivity.
Dave was always serious, and you were always having fun.
Sure. Well, Dave had some fun too, but I did, like I say, I got most of the punchlines, of the scenes, and I enjoyed it. And I thought I was funny.
Do you have any plans to move into television now? Have you been offered any scripts or what?
Well, I just got through doing a movie of the week for ABC, and I've been doing a lot of guest type things on shows. Yeah, just doing that this week.
And did they ask you to sing, or can you play straight roles?
No, these are just straight roles. You know.
Okay, very good. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Of course, one of the problems musical variety television is in quite a bit of difficulty. You've got Carol Burnett with a weekly show. Red Fox is still on weekly. Donnie and Marie have got, I guess, the highest ratings of anybody doing variety. And I'm delighted, and I don't know if you were aware of this, Rick, that Dick Clark, starting in the fall, will have a weekly live variety show, a la Ed Sullivan, only it'll be much more in the musical vein and not as many elephants.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that sounds like a very interesting show.
And that'll come out of, and I'm sure you've worked with Dick over the years.
Yeah, but it's strange. A lot of people think that I was on American Bandstand, and a lot, and I was never on it.
Really?
But, yeah, really. Yeah.
Now, we mentioned the Roxy. That's coming up. But there's another side to Rick Nelson. And Las Vegas, of course, is a city everybody wants to play. And all of a sudden, Rick Nelson is going to be making his debut at the Aladdin Hotel. Will that be the same basic show we're going to see at the Roxy, or will that be a little different?
It'll be a little different in that it's really, I'm taking my own show in with me and have really good people on the show. Mm-hmm. And it will be the first time that I've ever performed in Las Vegas, so I'm really looking forward to it. There's a fellow named Fats Johnson is going to be on the show, and the Sweet Inspirations will be on the show, and they're very good, so I'm really looking forward to it.
That's super. KABC, you're on with Bill Moran and Rick Nelson. Hello.
Yeah, my name is Bob.
Hey, Bob.
Like Dr. Rick.
You got him.
Yeah, Bob.
Yeah, Rick, I can remember you way back in radio. I'm 45, and I know you're, a little bit younger than that, I guess, but...
yeah, a little bit.
I would, I think it would be good if someone like yourself that, you would come right along with Elvis Presley and such would hit on big. And I've got a daughter that I thought I might be able to try to get what Bill was talking about earlier.
Uh-huh.
And when did you first start in on radio?
Well, I'll tell you, I was 7 years old, and the way that came about was that it was on a Christmas show, a special with Bing Crosby, and my brother and myself heard that the Crosbys were going to be on the show, and it was really our idea. We went in and said, what is this? Why aren't we on the show?
Right.
So we'd like to be on the show, and that kind of started the whole situation there.
Bing Crosby.
Go ahead, finish.
That must be something working with Bing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He's a fantastic...
really,
yeah.
really.
And it seemed to me I can remember, you was on a show with your parents, now would have been, it seemed like you were in the middle of somewhere and you got lost or something. That would have been, I'm thinking in the 40s, and I don't know if you was on that...
You probably saw so many scripts you wouldn't remember them. I would imagine it'd be tough to remember a script or two, or maybe it isn't.
Well, it's. I remember time periods more than like individual stories, maybe.
But I mean, would have been back in the late 40s?
Yeah, it would have actually, because I was born in 40, and I was on the show when I was 7, so it was probably could have been 47, 48.
Yeah, I'm thinking back, where I lived at that given time and such, but.
Yeah, I find that happens a lot of times with songs that I have recorded too. A lot of people can remember really where they were, when they heard certain songs and things. I think people can relate. I know I do anyway.
Oh, sure.
To certain songs and time periods.
We all do relative to our lives. Thank you very much for your call, sir.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
To talk to Rick Nelson in L.A., we're at 870-7263 out in the San Fernando Valley, Simi Valley, Santa Monica, West L.A., 981-7900. Out in Orange County, San Diego, and Riverside, 638-5151. You don't have Bobby Bonds to kick around anymore. Burbank, Glendale, and Pasadena, 244-0790. If you live in the San Gabriel Valley, 579-5986. I think it's a shame, too. One heck of a ball player. South Bay area, we're at 644-0790. Compton, Lakewood, Paramount, and Long Beach, we're at 639-2036. Let's talk about Love Boat. What's happening with that particular show?
Well,
what are you going to be playing?
I play a fellow with amnesia on that show, which is sort of an easy kind of role for me to play.
I guess all of us have had that problem.
Yeah, but I'm enjoying it very much, and the people over there are really, really nice to work with, and it's really a pleasure, and it's amazing how many people I run into, like on the crew and everything that has worked on our show.
When you talk about again a series like Love Boat, would you like to get into a series again?
Yeah, if it was the right thing, I would very much like to do a series. I really do.
Mm-hmm. Would comedy or
Well, I don't know. You know, I have a feeling about westerns. I really do. I would like to, you know, I know they're not the in thing now, you know, but for some reason I can kind of feel that it's sort of maybe coming back to that.
You know, you may be right. Television seems to be going in cycles. I mean, now all of a sudden the cop shows are in trouble, but of course it's difficult because how do you show violence without having violence?
Yeah, that's true. You know.
And they're only going now with shows that have been around a while. And but I remember when Gunsmoke and Lauren Green and Bonanza and all those series were so popular. How can a Western come back, though, without any violence in it?
Well, I don't think it has to be as realistic, maybe, as... what happens is you see so much violence on the news.
Yeah, you sure do.
That, and you get so saturated with it that you have to, I think, come a little closer in something that's really taking place now, you know, and it's a contemporary kind of thing. I think you can get away with you know, it's not as realistic, maybe, the violence.
But on the other hand, though, there's the situation here. Pressure groups are certainly dominant in television today. They're changing television, and I'm wondering whether they've changed it too much. There is violence out there in the world, and when you watch the news every night, you're going to see as much as you want to see. If the dramas start watering down everything, what in essence we're seeing may be fantasy.
Yeah, that's true, and you know, you see too much of that, and that can be harmful. You know, I mean, too much of anything, I guess. But it seems they go along with one particular idea and then just saturate it. You know, the networks and stuff, and I don't know. I just think that a Western it is part of our culture.
Oh yeah, no question.
And history, and it's and you know we are a pretty violent country. You know, if you look back on things and stuff, and you know, I think if it's done that way as a like a part of a historic kind of thing, it's not really like something that's going to happen that's happening today. You know.
That may be an advantage because when you're going back in time, maybe you can do a little more than if you were dramatizing something that's allegedly 1978.
I think so. You know, I think so, because I don't think you directly relate yourself to something like that.
I mean, when you stop and think about it, Roots was violent.
Oh, sure. Yeah, sure. And that's a definite part of our history.
And the most watched program in the history of television. Los Angeles, we're at 870-7263, and in the San Fernando Valley, 981-7900, and in Orange County, 638-5151. Rick Nelson is here. This is Bill Moran. You're on KABC.
Scratch, scratch, bingo, bingo, play bingo.
Which sponsors the programs as a public service of the City of Los Angeles. There is no admission charge and parking is free. For information and reservations, call 660-2297. Hospital costs are everyone's concern. Call the Hospital Council of Southern California for their free brochure, 10 Questions You Should Ask Before Going to the Hospital. It contains practical suggestions that will make you a more cost-conscious health user. Phone 749-0337. Can you use qualified, hard-working minority men and women in your firm? Coors Job Bank can help you. Call the Congress of Racial Equality and tell them about your openings. Dial area code 213-296-6160 or 296-6161.
Okay, we are back at 3:36 on a Sunday afternoon. We're going to be going back to the calls in 1 minute, Rick. But, you know, we were talking about Colonel Parker, and I guess in anything, an act must have important people around them, like a manager and an agent. Now, who handles your work in terms of an agent?
Well, actually, he's my manager is Greg McDonald.
I see.
And my agent that I have an agent also, a fellow named Hal Stallmaster, for you know,
motion
pictures. And things, yeah.
Good. Greg McDonald, a legend in his own time, right?
Right.
Okay. And, of course, you got the brand new album Intakes on Epic Records. Rick Nelson is here. KABC, you're on with Bill Moran and Rick Nelson. Hello?
Hello?
Hi, your name?
My name is Gordon.
Okay, Gordon.
Say, Rick, I wonder whether you noticed, and if you did notice, you probably resented it, that in the obituaries that followed your father's death, the wire services and local reporters, scandal sheet reporters, and also Hollywood reporters, they often omitted, and I believe it's a deliberate policy that's been set by the the biggies in the news business, they omitted that your father was an Eagle Scout. Did you notice that?
Well, sort of, yeah. It was something that, he was very proud of. I was very proud of because he was really the youngest Eagle Scout in the world, as a matter of fact. He was an Eagle Scout at the age of 13.
Yeah. Well, that is the youngest I've ever heard of, and I was a scout myself.
Yeah, and I believe they've changed the rules now. To where you have to be is it 14 or 15? I'm not sure.
Well, I'm calling from Long Beach, and I read it, and I thought to myself, listen, fella, you may think you're deceiving a lot of people, but you ain't deceiving this one.
Okay.
It disgusted me. I know it's part of this here policy of putting down the military and anything connected with the military.
All right, sir, I think you've made your point, and I thank you very, very much for expressing it. And you may want to talk to Ray Bream about it one night, or Michael Jackson, and of course they get heavily into political subjects. Thank you very much for your call. KABC, you're on with Bill Moran and Rick Nelson. Hello?
Hello, this is Joy.
Hi, Joy.
I'd like to know if Rick has a fan club, and if so, how I'd go about joining.
Well, yeah, actually I do, and it would probably be through Epic Records out here in in California here.
Who runs it for you?
Well, a girl named Paula Mason runs it.
Okay, and also, I understand you have a TV special.
Yes, I do. And we just got through doing one down in Monroe, Louisiana, and it's still kind of being, it's in the edited kind of state right now. It's being edited right now, and hopefully it'll be on sometime this fall.
That's great. Are you going to have an album follow the TV special?
Yeah. Well, I have a new album out now, and we did a lot of the album on the TV special.
Any guests on the show with you?
Well, the Sweet Inspirations were on the show.
So some of the material that we'll see on television we'll see in live performance?
Yes, right.
Is that answered for you?
Yes, so I'd just like to Epic Records to join your fan club.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
And right here in L.A. Thank you very much, Joy, for your call. KABC, you're on with Bill Moran and Rick Nelson. Hello? Hello?
Yes?
Yes, your name?
Me?
Yeah, you're on the air.
This is Mac.
Hi, Mac.
And I worked the Ozzie and Harriet show for 10 years.
Did you really? In what
Right.
capacity, Mac?
Huh?
What did you do?
Key grip is the title. I didn't want to identify myself that much.
Oh.
But I don't know whether Rick could remember me or not. I imagine he would.
I'm sure I would.
We carried him out of the bedroom a couple of times in the bed when he fell asleep, when he was supposed to be asleep.
Right. Well, I'm a method sleeper, is what it is.
Huh?
I'm a method sleeper. Is what. But yeah.
Rick, you don't sound like you remember me.
Well, yeah, I do. I wish I could see you.
What would you say, as you go back over the years of Ozzie and Harriet, 14 years on television, why the longevity, would you say?
Because it was a good show. It was a good, honest, clean show.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you for your call, sir.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. It's tough, I imagine. You must have had quite a crew working with you on those shows every week.
Well, yeah, and really, they really became like our family, too,
Mm-hmm.
And, when you're on television for that length of time, I mean, you really have to end up with people that you really like and can, work with, because it's a very confining kind of situation otherwise,
We're here with Rick Nelson. This is Bill Moran, and you're on KABC.
Welcome to Denny's. Would you like the smoking or non-smoking section?
Denny's does a lot of nice little things to make you feel welcome. Like setting aside a special section where non-smokers can enjoy Denny's great food in comfort.
The new non-smoking section, I think, is great.
I'm a smoker, and I think it's nice Denny's gives people a choice.
This shows they do care about their customers, and I like that a lot.
And Denny's has special dietary foods available on request, like Egg Beater's low-cholesterol breakfast, low-calorie syrup, skim milk, and all Denny's deep-fried foods are prepared in vegetable shortening. Nice little touches.
Across the country. treat whenever you're hungry. Pull into Denny's. Looking good and cooking good. Welcome to Denny's.
At Denny's, you'll enjoy the food and hospitality, and you'll really appreciate the little extra touches that make you feel at home. Welcome to Denny's.
You're looking good.
Employers who wish to comply with federal regulations for hiring the disabled may receive assistance from the ADEPT program, assisting the disabled with employment, placement, and training. The ADEPT program has a job bank of marketable, job-ready, handicapped individuals living in the San Fernando Valley who are able to work within the greater Los Angeles area. For information about the job bank, employers, or qualified disabled persons, call the ADEPT office, 988-9777.
3:43 on a Sunday afternoon. This is Bill Moran, and you're right here on KABC. We got Rick Nelson here in studio. A reminder, next Sunday we'll be with you between 1:10 and 4 o'clock, and at that time we'll be looking at the history of ABC as an entertainment complex. We'll be going back into radio and television. That also happens to be the day that there'll be a 4-hour television special on ABC, Sunday, February the 5th, and you'll also be hearing some of the stars on the ABC network now. So that can be interesting next Sunday, 1:10 to 4. Coming up on February the 12th here in studio, Herb Alpert will be here, along with Hugh Masekela. Herb Alpert not only talking about his brand of entertainment, but he also is the owner of A&M Records, one of the top independent record companies in the world, from the Carpenters to the Tijuana Brass to Peter Frampton to you name it. A&M is really there. And on the 19th of February here in studio, Donna Summer will be here, and we'll also have funny man Steve Martin. Coming up on future shows, Henry Mancini, Natalie Cole, and others. Sunday afternoons, 1:10 to 4 p.m. with Bill Moran here on KABC. We've got here in studio, Rick Nelson records for Epic Records. He's got a movie of the week coming up, got a Love Boat coming up. He'll be at the Aladdin Hotel on the Roxy. He's a pretty busy guy, and we got him away from doing nothing on a Sunday to come in here and talk to all of you, and he's taking your calls. Our number is in Los Angeles, 870-7263. Out in the San Fernando Valley, 981-7900. Compton, Lakewood, Paramount, and Long Beach, 639-2036. The South Bay area, 644-0790. Would you like your kids to get into show business?
Yeah, I would if it was their idea and they wanted to. And you know, I have twin boys, and actually I have 4 kids. You know, and my daughter Tracy is 14, and then boys are 10. And I have another boy 3. So I think they're all ready. They're ready.
They're going to follow their old man, huh?
Well, I don't know.
I guess though, when you're talking about growing up, though, did you ever wonder when you were growing up? Did you ever long for? Were you able to have a personal life with your show business?
Yeah, I really was. You know, because both my brother and myself always went to public schools, so we always had friends in school. I went to Bancroft Junior High School and Hollywood High School, and it was really a thing that we did after school. You know, was the television show, and I know with the radio show that used to be on Sunday that we do that. So we do have friends outside of show business, really. As a matter of fact, you were mentioning the ABC special,
right?
And we're on that too. My mom and my brother and myself.
Great. Now, the Ozzie and Harriet show for the 14-year run, what network were you on for most of the
We were
run?
on ABC.
You were on ABC.
As a matter of fact, we were really the first show, network show for 2 years, and the only network show for 2 years on ABC.
Well, we're going to get into Ozzie and Harriet again next week. Ozzie and Harriet Revisited next Sunday when we talk about the history of ABC, and maybe we'll even give Rick a call. We'll find him. He might be skiing or somewhere, but are you a pretty good athlete?
Well, I enjoy athletics very much, and I used to play a lot of tennis. I used to play, a lot of tournaments and things like that, and travel around, and I enjoy just about any kind of athletics.
We might get you out of Dodger Stadium for one of those Dodger show business games.
Sure, I'd love it.
All right, we'll tell Peter O'Malley to give you a call. KABC, you're on with Bill Moran, Rick Nelson, and Peter O'Malley is not here.
Yes,
Hello.
Rick?
Yes. Your name?
This is Frank.
Hey, Frank.
I always considered Nelson family to be a very attractive family, but it seems recently why the trend has been to have less attractive people on television. That I was watching an interview program many years ago, and Julie London was being interviewed on some show, and just after she had been separated from Jack, and they says, "Well, what are you going to do now, Julie?" And she says, "Well, I don't know." He says, "Well, why don't you sing?" And she says, "Well, I can't carry a tune." And he says, "Well, with your looks, you don't have to carry your tune. Just talk your way through a song." So I was just wondered if you had your own, like you say you're going to have a show in Las Vegas, would you consider letting an attractive young lady like Dorothy Hamill talk her way through a song or someone like that?
Well, gee, I don't know. I've always admired her, and I agree with you. I think she is very attractive, you know. And I know she has had a couple of specials on television.
Yeah, but she never sings.
Oh, well, maybe she doesn't. I don't know. Can she sing?
Yeah, but she could talk her way through a song and become a fixture on television, just like Julie London has done.
A little different. You got to remember one thing: when Julie London was one heck of a singer. She sold a lot of records back in those Crimea River days. And then there got to be a point when the Julie Londons and the Joe Staffords and a lot of the artists of that era stopped selling records. The music business is a tough ball game. That's why you can't stay on top that long. That's why I guess when you look back at an Elvis Presley who hung in for 25 years, even when he died he was on top. I mean, he had a lot of hit albums before his death, and of course when he died, everything just went right through the roof. There was one stage when Presley had 10 albums on the country chart out of 50 and 7 albums on the pop chart. And the Bing Crosby, I suppose, who sold 400 million records. When you sell 42 million records of White Christmas, that's quite a statistic. There are stars like that who have longevity, but they're few and far between. It's difficult to stay on top. Now, Dorothy Hamill did a special. I saw her special on television. She's not a singer. Short and simple, she's not a singer. She's a personality who made it through sports, went into the public light, and I think that that type of performer, unless they really are an entertainer and can sing and can dance, aren't going to make it in Vegas. I don't care what the publicity is. The people want a show, and you better be able to give them one.
Yeah, well, I would like to rather see Kathy Lee Johnson sing for half an hour than the program that she is on. She gets to sing a plug maybe for 30 seconds or something like that every 5 minutes. And why don't we have more attractive singers on television?
You mean Olivia Newton-John type singers? Is that what you're talking about?
Sure, that'd be fine. That'd be great.
Well, I think there's a big problem with attractive singers on television because there are no variety shows on television. Where are they going to sing?
Well, they could just sing.
All right, you've got Donnie Marie Osmond, you've got a few shows like that, Carol Burnett, and I thank you very, very much for your call. This is Bill Moran on a Sunday afternoon, and we're going to be here right up until 4 o'clock. And, of course, we mentioned the Beatles, and we're giving away, Rick, the complete Beatle album catalog, but did you ever meet any of the Beatles?
Yes, I've met all of them, as a matter of fact, and I got to know George Harrison very well because he used to live right down in front of our house, and we'd get together and talk a lot, and it was a very flattering thing to me because I know they used to listen to a lot of my early albums, you know, when they had just gotten together, and he knew, different guitar solos and things like that, and like I say, I think that they really turned music around as far as like using different recording techniques and things.
And of course they were writers.
Sure, and very good musicians and singers. So,
what would you say though when you go back over the great contributors to popular music? Would you say that the Beatles would have happened, let's say, without Presley?
It's so hard to say. Probably not. Really, and because Elvis really established rock and roll as a music form. And because I know when I started singing. We used to get letters and everything, and how could you let your son, sing this rock and roll, this kind of music and things like that. And I used to have people coming up to me and saying, well, it's a fad, it's going to pass in 2 weeks, And it's really become it's a definite musical form, and it's really part of American culture.
Now, the kids today, though, they're crying for some changes, apparently. Again, I don't know how many kids are crying, but the business today, back, let's say, comparing now to the 50s, it's easy to get. Apparently, an album will sell 7 million copies much more easily than it did back then, which makes the Presley statistic even more dramatic, and your statistics more dramatic. But you take a Rumors album, 8-9 million copies sold. The Frampton Comes Alive, 13 million. Do you think it's the fact that it's better music today, or is it better merchandising and marketing?
Well, I think it has a lot to do with the merchandising and marketing, and it's a big business. So, which really back in the 50s, it was more everybody tried for that single, hit single, and it was more single oriented, I think, during those times. And now, I think the musicianship, there are a lot more musicians that are really top musicians, you know. And back when I started, there were really just a handful of, say, lead guitar players that you could name, you know.
But now you got the punk rock scene, or the new wave, whatever that is, where kids are spitting up and throwing up and using vulgarity. What about punk rock? Is that an alternative, and what does it really mean?
I don't know. I think it's just kind of another kind of extension or form of rock and roll. You know, I think that rock and roll is really the influence in anything. I don't think the music is really any different.
Mm-hmm. Is it getting away from the kids, though, the music? Has it gotten so big? Has it gotten so big that if you want to see a rock performer, you got to go into a 20,000 seater like the Forum, or a 55,000 or 60,000 seater? A lot of kids are saying that the stars are stars, and all of a sudden they're not relating to their audience.
Well, you know, it's a possibility. I don't know. I know that you know, like there's a lot of money to be made in those big places, and it does cost an awful lot to put on those shows. You know, that's what a lot of people don't realize, is that it really, the performer or act or whatever is really paying for all the things that are seen.
That's true.
You know.
KABC, you're on with Bill Moran and Rick Nelson. Hello.
Hi there.
Hi, your name?
My name's Larry.
Hi, Larry.
I'm a disc jockey here in town. I'd like to talk to Rick a little bit.
All right.
Talk about his lovely mom. Wasn't her maiden name Harriet Hilliard, Rick?
Yes, that's right. Uh-huh.
And didn't she grow up in the Gary, Indiana area?
Well, I know they performed in that area a lot. She was actually...
She sang with your dad's band, right?
Right. She was a vocalist with my dad's band, and that's where they met, really.
I think she went to school with my mother.
Really?
She's still a lovely lady. How did she make the transition after your dad's tragic passing? I mean,
well, it's
recovering.
Yeah, she's doing fine, thanks. And she's, you know, she is a very lovely lady, and she's been doing a lot of guest appearances on different television shows, and you know, she's of course a very good actress. You know,
do you see her much?
I see her quite often.
Larry, you want to identify which station you're with and who you are?
Yeah, I'm with Kiss. Larry McKay's my name.
Oh, one of the finest DJs in the city. I'm glad you were joining the show today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Larry McKay.
Thanks, Larry.
Thanks for being with us. If you ever dreamed of owning every album ever recorded by the fabulous Beatles, Larry McKay plays the Beatles on Kiss, well, here's your chance. From Capitol Records, we'll be giving you, a lucky KABC listener, the complete Beatles album collection. How about that? That's worth a lot of bread. And another 9 lucky winners will receive the 2-record album set called Love Songs. To be eligible for the random drawing, send a card with your name, address, phone number, and age to Beatles Contest, KABC, 3321 South La Cienega, LA 90016. Entries due January 31. That's right around the corner, so you better get them in right now. Drawing on February 2nd. The grand prize winner will receive the complete Beatles collection right here on my show next Sunday, February 5. You'll be one of the guests. One winner out there. 9 people, of course, getting Love Songs. Okay? Okay, 3:56, right here on KABC. And Rick Nelson, let's talk a little bit about 1978 now, and where you see your career going, and so on and so forth.
Well, I feel very, very positive about things, and very good, because, like I say, I just signed a thing with Epic Records, and you know, they're really a really super record company.
Good record company.
Really. And you know, with the album intakes that I have out, you know, I feel good about that. Very positive. And the places that I'll be playing in, performing in, you know, and with the special and everything, I feel real good about everything, as a matter of fact.
Everything is rolling in one direction. I tell you what I want to do, because on this show we do have an opportunity for the public to hear the people behind the scenes. And no, Greg? Okay. We usually like to do that, and sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't. But I tell you, Rick, let's talk a little bit now about some of your future recording things. Now, what are some of the things you want to write about that in your forthcoming album?
Well, I don't know. You know, I really like to. I'm really not a disciplined writer. You know, I can't really sit down and say, well, I'm going to write about this subject and this subject. It just sort of happens, and I do have the luxury of being able to, you know, to kind of wait until that kind of thing happens. And it was like with Garden Party, I really had no preconceived notion of writing it. It just sort of, all of a sudden, I just kind of started thinking about it, and how ironic it was that we were accepted in London at that time. and had to go out of the country to be accepted, and then
Neil
also
Sedaka,
just
the
kinda
same
came,
thing
you know.
happened. Same thing happened with Neil Sedaka. It's interesting too that when you go outside this country, there's a record with Humphrey Bogart right now and Ingrid Bergman. As time goes by, from Casablanca, that's a top 20 record in England right now.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I guess they're really picking up on those kinds of things. Casablanca is a, will be around forever.
What about, as you look at the scene today, the drug culture 1978? You still think it's as evident today as it was a couple of years ago with musicians?
I don't know. I think it's probably really kind of being it's kind of old news, maybe. To a certain extent. I mean, it's the same as alcohol, really. I know probably in high school it's like a big new thing now is to drink.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Now, let's again review when the Roxy engagement's going to be.
Okay, let me see. It's this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very much looking forward to playing down there because it's you spoke about the forum and things like that.
It's intimate.
It is a chance to really get close to people and everything, and I enjoy working that way.
When will the Aladdin be?
Okay, the Aladdin is March 7th through the 20th.
Okay, super. And in the closing minute or two, let's say hello to Elmer Dills. Elmer, what will be happening with you?
I haven't the faintest idea. Oh, well, we're going to talk about a $250 dinner for two I had the other night, where a limo picked me up at home with a bottle of Dom Perignon, and out we went for dinner. And I'd like to thank you for paying for it, Bill.
Okay, thank you, Elmer. 4:10 to 7, Elmer Dills will follow us today. And Rick Nelson, I certainly want to thank you for being with us, and enjoyed having you here.
Thank you very much, Bill. Thank you.
Good luck with the new album intakes on Epic Records. We'll see you out at the Roxy and the Aladdin and every place else. Next Sunday, we'll be with you between 1:10 and 4 o'clock. The history of ABC Radio and Television, including Ozzie and Harriet. In 2 weeks, we'll have Herb Alpert here in studio and one of the top agents in the business, Betty Kay. Coming up on the 19th, we'll have here in studio the man, Steve Martin, and the lady of song, Donna Summer. Every Sunday, 1:10 to 4 o'clock, we'll get involved with all forms of entertainment. We want to thank you very much for being with us. And again, if you got any questions you will have relative to kids and commercials, movies, and TV, and that great response we had today, drop me a line. Bill Moran, care of KABC Talk Radio. And don't forget, too, we're right at the end of the Beatles contest. If you want to win the entire Beatle album catalog, drop us a line here at KABC. This is Bill Moran on a Sunday afternoon on KABC. Goodbye, everybody.